Hi, everybody. It's Dr. Laura with Connect My Brain. Thanks so much for tuning in. I really appreciate you listening to my podcast, and just know that I try to bring you excellent information so that you will be able to make some decisions for yourself and maybe share this information with somebody else. So today is going to be some deep information, and I will probably get this one taken off of YouTube, and that's fine. But we will be able to have it up on the website, and I hope that you will share this information with other people. I've titled this NeuroImmune NeuroPsychiatric, and the reason I bring this information up is because I see a lot of kids, and I have for the last 28 years of my life. And there was always this common thread amongst children that had some very serious issues going on. And back in the beginning, it may have been something like, language delay. It could have been pandas. It could have been chronic strep throat. But whatever it was, it had also impacted their development. So there's terms that are used like NeuroImmune and NeuroPsychiatric, and they're both focused on an autoimmune issue. And when we talk about autoimmune, what it means is that something has happened, an event has gone on, and it's now triggering a reaction back on yourself. But it typically can be tied to something that has been introduced into the body. And many people that I've worked with over the years, what was reported in their histories was as typical or as normal as we can expect pregnancy delivery without a lot of red flags. And that early on, the baby was absolutely developing as expected. And then there was a host of events that occurred somewhere between early on, it was more like 18 to 24 months. And more, I'm running into earlier times like a year and above. And recently, we are seeing more events with babies since there has been the push to get a vaccine for a virus. Now, let's kind of break this down. First of all, whatever you decide to do is your right to do. And I think it really does go both ways. I think if you choose to get any kind of shot that is geared towards preventing a particular virus or bacteria, that's your choice to make. I also believe that if somebody doesn't want to do that, then that should be their right too. And I believe that everybody should receive informed consent, which means that you should be given the full picture of what is possible so that you can make an educated decision. Back in my 20s, I was actually a paralegal, and I didn't know anything about the mandatory shots that go on, other than I can remember having them myself. But as a paralegal, I was assisting an attorney, and one day I went in and there was a book open and it had a picture of a baby. And I said, "Oh, are we working on a baby case?" And the response was, "Yeah, a dead one." And well, first I was just kind of startled, and I said, "Well, what happened?" And the response was that the parents believed that the child died from shots, but we were on the side of insurance defense so that we would not be believing that. And that really stuck with me. I'm a life learner for sure. And now I can put pieces together from even back then, where when somebody tells me something, it makes me ask the question, well, what do you mean? And how come I never heard that that could possibly happen? And I did. I literally felt that I had been misled, that somebody should have said something to me and give me the opportunity to make a decision for myself. And I wasn't given that. In my family, we had everything. We had every shot known to mankind. And I even ended up with an atypical measles that left me in darkness for 14 days. And to this day, I am very light sensitive. So even though I had all the shots, I ended up with an atypical. Well, how do you end up with an atypical? So one thing that we need to understand is that when you do get these kinds of shots, you are actually introducing the virus or the bacteria into the body. And what you're hoping to accomplish is that the body then will develop an antibody response to it, so that if you ever come into contact with the same pathogen again, your body will launch an attack faster. That is how the immune system works. However, when we are doing it from an atypical way, meaning that we are pushing it into the bloodstream rather than getting natural contact with it. In fact, over the years, there are some practices that use nasal spray versus a shot because that is the typical portal that most viruses are going to enter into the body. So, but you don't see a lot of that. And I wonder why. Well, of course, I just said I always ask these questions. Your nose is the only special sense, first of all, that does not cross over. The other thing about it is that it is a direct opening to your brain. So I wonder how much reactions have been seen from people that have had this type of intervention. Now, I do think too that there are a lot of variables, okay? I think reactions are not linear, just like many things are not linear. It is going to be a part of who you are. What is your chemistry? What is your makeup? What is your lifestyle? What is it? What was the state of health that your parents were at the time that you were conceived? There's many different variables to this. There's also different lots of shots, meaning this lot number 119 or this lot 765, that there are different times that different batches are created. And I know from really listening to many different educators in this arena, there's really no way that every single batch is made exactly the same. So unfortunately, some people get more of certain things than others. Now, I guess when was it they decided that they were going to take a particular heavy metal out of a certain shot, and what they did was they replaced it with another heavy metal. And that other heavy metal is actually aluminum. And aluminum is a very large molecule that tries to go through the kidneys, and it cannot do it. Some of the studies, when that switch was made, started showing that many kids were having kidney stones. I wonder if that was a correlation. So I think over the past few years, we're now being faced with a completely new set of rules over viruses and bacteria. And so I decided to see what is it that people really do see. And I'm not going to turn this into a video since I know that I'm going to get kicked off of YouTube anyway. But what I did is I put in vaccine introduces pathogen into the body. And the only thing that shows up in that search is anything from the CDC, from the WHO, World Health Organization, again, CDC, Medline Plus, Microbiology Society, the National Institute of Health, PubMed, and everything is exactly the same. But it will say that you are getting whatever that shot is designed to put in your body. You are getting that antigen in your body. Wow. Okay. So then what I decided to do was change my search, because I felt like, and I'm even using like DuckDuckGo for searches, but unfortunately, I think even our searches are now being controlled. So then I decided, let's go put in a different search. So I put in the truth about shots. I hope you caught that word. But I couldn't believe that I didn't think of this from the beginning, because I actually have these DVDs in my office, and I watched this entire documentary when it came out, and it came out the same quarter that we had a situation in our world about 3 years ago. And one of them that really spoke to me, it's a great website. And this is what I want you to do. I don't want you to take my views. I want you to educate yourself. You have to always do what is right. But here's the deal. If you choose to do shots, then what you are saying is that you believe that that shot is going to protect you. And if you believe that, then it doesn't matter what anybody else is going to do, because you are saying that's right for me, and I know that that's going to protect me. It does not matter if somebody else does not do it. And unfortunately, especially over the last 3 years, this is disinformation to make it sound like that if you don't do what we're telling you to do, that you are making the rest of the world ill. That is just not true. That is not how your immune system works. My own children will tell you, my mom's got the most amazing immune system in the whole wide world. I work with kids. These kids are coming in with all kinds of things, but because I work on my immune system, I'm not a host. And the same thing is true for you. If you work on your immune system, you can prevent something coming into you. But if you know how the immune system works and you have a plan, I like to refer to it as the health cabinet versus the medicine cabinet. But if you have a plan, you actually know how to work with viruses and keep them from mutating in your body. And this is not something difficult to accomplish. So I went over here and I found one that I thought was pretty interesting. I'm going to kind of squeeze the words around a bit. From advocate to critic, German health minister champions informed consent and transparency in the blank 19 blank injuries. Okay. So I want to share a little bit of this information with you. Karl Lauterbach, a prominent German politician and epidemiologist, recently called for increased transparency in reporting adverse reactions and injury related to, let's just refer to it as the virus. Lauterbach's timely demand for open communication and accurate reporting of virus related issues or shot related issues emphasizes the importance of informed consent, a cornerstone of ethical medical practice in a world grappling with the word that begins with a P and relates to the whole virus. I am very big on informed consent. One, I'm a healthcare practitioner. I have to give this to every single patient that comes into this office. You should demand that for everything that you have done to your body or put into your body. This is where you have the right to say no. Okay? Okay, why is informed consent a moral imperative? Informed consent is an essential aspect of medical ethics. It grants patients the right to be fully informed about the potential risks and benefits of any medical intervention, including shots. By having access to accurate and transparent information about shot injuries, individuals can make educated choices about their health care. A few months ago, maybe a couple, I had Amy Kelly on my podcast from Daily Clout IO. This organization went and brought legal representation against manufacturers of shots in order to protect the community because they wanted that information squashed for 75 years. That's ridiculous. And we would all be gone and never know the truth. And a judge, a righteous judge, which I think we got to pray for our judges because they're afraid and they're not responding by what they're being presented with. Well, this judge did. And he said, no, you got to uncover this information and you have to let these people look at it. They have 3,500 volunteers. And this is a range of people from attorneys, medical doctors, nurses, laypersons that are going through the voluminous amount of information. And information was already known that we could be potentially hurt. And what has gone on is that we're pushing back, and it's now being required of our children. And our children have already gone through an enormous amount of masking and being pulled away from their peers and going to school. And there are numerous stories of children. Some have passed, some are continuing to fight for their life after being part, basically, of a trial, that we're not really sure what in the world this shot is all about. And I bring this to you because school will be upon us before you know it. And I already have parents coming to me going, I don't know what to do. And I know in the state of Georgia, we have always had the right to say no, that it's against our philosophical belief. And now, even people that go to religious orientated schools, they're being told that they can't even use a religious exemption. Something isn't right. We tried to download the form because you used to be able to get the form right on the Department of Health. And now it literally says on that form, sample. You can't get the form. And now you are required that only a medical doctor or a licensed nurse practitioner can sign that document. This is not informed consent. This is not preservation of your healthcare rights. I also brought to you weeks ago, maybe a couple months also, because Amy and Jim Roguski were back to back on the podcast. I brought him to you, and he was sharing the truth about what's going on at the World Health Organization. And if you have not looked up this information, I am really encouraging you to do so. You need to understand what is happening to your health care rights. Every country only is represented by one individual at the World Health Organization. This person is a delegate. It is not somebody from Congress. In fact, many people from the United States Congress had no idea what was actually going on over at the World Health Organization. And it was through the amendments that they were trying to bury different things that they want to do, just like it is happening even over the whole thing with raising the debt limit and putting in the fear that we're going to default on everything. There was so much buried in that bill. And this is not transparency. This is what this epidemiologist is talking about. We need transparency. We have to have the right to know what you're actually deciding for us. And apparently these amendments have all passed. They're going to be voted on in May of 2024. And apparently they want to have a practice run this fall. And I'm going to really encourage you to go look at these documents because it is very similar, if not worse, to what we went through at the beginning of 3 years ago. Now, if that happens, I will truly believe that everything that we have been hearing about is happening. And I don't want this for us. And I only know how to bring forth information and encourage you to find it out for yourself so that you can make a decision for yourself. I want to read also in an excerpt from Kennedy's book, which is also on this page. They write the steady stream of editorials that appear in local and national newspapers to reinforce the hacked orthodoxies of the pharmaceutical paradigms. All shots are safe and effective, etc. They root out hearsay by sitting on the state medical boards, the inquisition courts, that censor and de-license dissident doctors. They control the medical journals and peer-reviewed journals' literature to fortify pharma's agenda. They teach on medical school faculties, populate journal editorial boards, and chair university departments. They supervise hospitals and chair hospital departments. They act as expert witnesses for pharmaceutical companies in civil court and the federal vaccine court. They present awards to one another. It's a well-encapsulated bubble. And this just isn't about the last 3 years. This is about an industry that wants to stay in control. And I am not against medicine. I was just having this conversation with one of the dads that brings his kids here who's a pharmaceutical rep. I believe in medicine. I just don't believe that everything that's pushed out there is true. I don't believe that everybody has to be on medications. There's an amazing body. And when this body is treated well, fed well, when the mind is healthy, it thrives. If something happens, then by all means, get the attention that is necessary through the proper channels. But it doesn't mean that we all cannot coexist together. I love how we talk about coexisting in one arena, but when it comes to medical decisions in healthcare, it's like there's only one train of thought. And I believe that because there's so many people that over the years have really grown to have more responsibility about their healthcare decisions, I think that's part of why there's a vice coming down. And the only way that we can look at this is that we have to look at it. We have to be informed. When it comes to autoimmune, I have been reading some case reports associated with neuropsychic syndrome and neuroimmune syndrome. And what I want to do is I want to explain those terms, because most of this arena is surrounding children. It started off in the idea or the diagnosis of PANDAS, which is pediatric autoimmune neuropsychiatric developmental acquired syndrome. And what this was is children that were very sick and had incredible triggers. But again, the longer this stuff stays around, it's attacking them. It's now autoimmune. It's an autoimmune storm. Years ago, they thought it had something to do with strep, and now they do. They know it has to do with strep. Strep is a bacteria. So what happens? The bacteria mutates. This is one of the things that I try to teach my patients, that when we have some kind of an illness, if we are doing something to support our immune system every hour for the first 24 hours, you are starting to interrupt the mutation process. But lots of times people go, well, I'm not quite sure if I feel bad or not. I'm going to give it a couple of days. And now they're full blown. So when these bacteria and viruses are mutating, they are staying around, and they literally can crawl up into your brain and start to attack your brain. When you break these words down, children are in neurological development. So they may be learning to crawl. They may be learning to walk. They may be acquiring their pencil grip. They may be acquiring handwriting, some type of neurological function. If an illness is going on at that time, during those open windows of development, what fires together wires together. And now I've got, not only I'm in developmental delay, but now I am also having an immune reaction that, while my immune system was in an open window development, I've actually programmed myself to know how to attack myself. This is what we're seeing. And the same thing is true for neuropsychiatric syndrome. When you come into this world, you're fully formed, but you're not fully functioning. You're down in your brain stem. You have to go through stereotypical movements. You have to go through your developmental milestones in order to move up to your midbrain, to your higher brain. If you're having illnesses at this time, these systems are being attacked. And if you've ever had anything before, or you had something introduced into you, like a shot for chickenpox, you could literally re-trigger that infection. And it will then cause rapid regression. And the same thing is true for adults. If you're taking something, if you're having something put into your body, it's going everywhere. That is exactly what they found out as it relates to the most recent new shot on the market. It didn't stay in your arm. It went everywhere. And now there's all kinds of illnesses that maybe you had in the past that are reoccurring. And it also happens when you get around somebody that has had that shot. You can have what's called shedding, and things that were inside of you, dormant, can be re-triggered and re-emerge. And this can lead to changes in mental behavior. I just want to read part of the abstract from this particular case report, Brain Behavior and Immunity Health, out of Elsevier. Viral or bacterial infections can trigger autoimmune inflammatory reactions and condition in children. Self-reactivity due to similarity. Oh, this is such an important part. Self-reactivity arises due to similarities in molecular structures between pathogenic microorganisms and regular body structures, with consequent immune cross reactions. Okay, I know that's a lot of words. Let me break it down. It's called cellular mimicry. It's kind of like talking about the amygdala and the frontal lobe when it comes to threats being laid down and how fast you are already destined to a particular reaction in your frontal lobe, like anxiety. When these triggers come in, they're looking for things that closely look like what they're supposed to be attacking. That's what cellular mimicry is. And so if they can't, maybe they'll find some that are exact, but they also can go after things that are just similar. So let me put it very, very simply. Let's just say the code is XYZ. They find some XYZ and they can attack it. But maybe they also go and attack X. And maybe they go attack YZ. And maybe X is your brain. And maybe YZ is your liver. Meaning that everything and anything is possible. Wow. I do feel like our children are a vulnerable population. And I do believe it's up to us to get educated and to understand what is going on and to find your avenue, to find what speaks to you, and support and help where you can. Share this information. That is one great thing that everybody can do. Go share my podcast from Mercy. If you go look at Jim Roguski's site, all the information is there. If you go to Daily Clout.io, all the information is there. In fact, they have actually published books on the information that they are sharing and that I have shared with you. It is important for us to get educated. I believe the next generation is truly counting on us. Thank you for tuning in. Be blessed.